Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. 10 days until Christmas, and just under 3 weeks until the Bad Batch Season 2. We're going to be talking about Star Wars movies, but first, a couple of tidbits, one for the Book of Boba Fett, and the other for Cal Kestis. So without much further ado, and without any more jibber jabber, let's dive straight into it. Something I saw that's been gaining traction in the online fandom spaces, the upcoming Star Wars Bounty Hunters Ultimate Sticker Collection. This would not normally be something I'd care about, but in the preview, there is something very wrong. On the page where we see the characters from the Book of Boba Fett, like Cad Bane, Chrysanthemum, Boba, Scad, and Drash, we also have Fennec Shand. Not only do they not introduce her by her name, but they've literally got her down as Boba's sidekick. She has been done so dirty here. Fennec Shand is so much more than that. She's a master assassin. Remember in the Book of Boba Fett, she's called Master Assassin Fennec Shand. I mean, even Drash and Scad are mentioned by name. I mean, sure, they do put Fennec Shand in the description, but she's literally introduced as Boba Fett's sidekick. That is so wrong. She's proven her badassery in The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch Season 1, and The Book of Boba Fett. The person who wrote this really undermined her importance, and I've got to say, I hope she appears in The Bad Batch Season 2. Considering she's met Omega and further down the timeline Boba Fett, I wonder if Fennec is the catalyst for the two Fett clones meeting, and it's the question we all had during The Book of Boba Fett. Why didn't Fennec Shand bring up the fact she knew Omega? Well, one theory is that she didn't know Omega was related to Boba. After all, it was so many years ago. Or maybe she forgot, or maybe in the Bad Batch Season 2, Omega and Boba Fett are gonna meet, Alpha and Omega. And so by the time of the Book of Boba Fett, it was already established off screen that they all knew each other, and this is another reason I'm really hoping for a second season of Book of Boba, so that we do see a grown Omega interacting with Boba Fett further down the timeline. Maybe by that point, Omega is a bounty hunter, an assassin, or something of the sorts, but Fennec Shand's importance should not be undermined, and it really sucks that they mentioned her as Boba's sidekick. That's really the wrong word. I mean, sure, it doesn't really matter, it's just a sticker book at the end of the day, but they could have at least put her name as the title. And so now guys, with all of the recent talk about Jedi Fallen Order sequel Jedi Survivor, the recent gameplay trailer we covered, there seems to be a disappointing update for a live-action Cal Kestis. Cameron Monaghan spoke with Entertainment Weekly, and he says he doesn't know if there are any plans to bring Cal Kestis into a Disney Plus series. But of course, even if he did know, he'd have to pretend he doesn't. But he does express the desire to see Cal Kestis much older. And bear in mind guys, Jedi Survivor coincidentally comes out on March the 17th. That is the Friday after The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 3, Chapter 19. Could this release date hint at a clue that Cal Kestis is in The Mandalorian's third season later on? That's a very big possibility. I can imagine Lucasfilm doing this. He'd be such a cool character to have in the Mandoverse. But he does say in the interview that Lucasfilm want him to have a complete arc in the games, and that means it might not be for a while until we see him in a Disney Plus show, but fingers crossed, that'd be absolutely amazing. Now, when it comes to updates for the future of Star Wars movies, there have been so many reports over the last few years since the Rise of Skywalker, some which often contradict each other. The reality is, on the TV show side of things, the franchise is in a much better position than the movies, which, let's be honest, is a bit of a mess. Lucasfilm seems to like to announce new directors and upcoming movies, only for them to be cancelled, indefinitely delayed, or even worse, we never hear about them ever again. This has been a trend that we in the fandom have witnessed and talked about in depth. And so when Bob Iger returned, the hope was that he was going to put focus on the movie side of the franchise once more. It's too soon to tell, but that is what various outlets have been saying. Now, 2 years ago at Disney Investor Day 2020, Kathleen Kennedy announced a wide range of shows and movies, and the promise at the time was that Rogue Squadron would be the next installment on the big screen, set for a 2023 release. The movie was said to explore a new era of the timeline, and it was being helmed by Jenkins. Now, the saga that is the story of conflicting reports for that movie has been an absolute rollercoaster. In late 2021 and earlier this year, outlets came out saying that the movie was indefinitely delayed, and then we had rumours of this being due to creative differences. And then about a week ago, LRM Online reported that they heard from their sources close to Lucasfilm that the movie is still going ahead, and they're gonna start filming in 2024. Now, it sounded very unlikely given the other reports for the film, but it turns out they might have been right, because Patty Jenkins herself posted to Twitter an official statement outlining what's going on with the Star Wars movie, as well as the Wonder Woman franchise. Jenkins briefly covered Rogue Squadron and claimed the film is still in active development, but she doesn't actually know if the movie's ever going to come to fruition. Let me read you a brief yet significant excerpt. "I'm not one to talk about private career matters, but I will not allow inaccuracies to continue. Here are the facts. I originally left Rogue Squadron after a long and productive development process when it came clear it couldn't happen soon enough, and I didn't want to delay Wonder Woman 3 any further. When I did, Lucasfilm asked me to consider coming back to Rogue Squadron after Wonder Woman 3, which I was honoured to do so, and I agreed. They made a new deal with me. In fact, I'm still on it, and that project has been in active development ever since. I don't know if it will happen or not. We never do until the development process is complete, but I look forward to its potential ahead." Now, it's really interesting to hear Patty's version of events. In January of 2021, just a month after the film was announced, costume designer Lindy Hemming, who was going to work on the film, claims that Jenkins would shoot Rogue Squadron before the third Wonder Woman film, but just 10 months later, the film is delayed indefinitely due to, quote, "scheduling conflicts," and Jenkins proceeded to work on Wonder Woman 3. And maybe she's withholding the entire truth. Maybe development was not going smoothly, and the project was always going to be delayed, which would have had a knock-on effect for Wonder Woman. Who knows, but hopefully we do get more information soon. But this problem of schedule conflicts and misplaced priorities seems to be a trend within Lucasfilm at the moment, and the directors they hire. As we know, the next Star Wars movie is slated to release in December of 2025, and there are two candidates for that date. It's either Taika Waititi's film that he's working on with Kirsty Wilson-Cairns, a film which we don't even know if Taika has an idea for yet, and the other contender is Damon Lindelof, and his film is growing in momentum. Back in May, Kathleen Kennedy, the Lucasfilm president, did say that Taika's film is next, but since word has been quiet around the project, that might not be the case anymore, and this brings us on to our next Star Wars movie update. Shawn Levy of Stranger Things and Free Guy was reported and confirmed to be directing an upcoming Star Wars film earlier this year. While the project is still in the very early stages, the director recently hinted that he wants to make a visual spectacle. He said this in a recent interview with Sci-Fi Wire. Here is the full quote: "We're in pretty early development still, but the goal is to make a Star Wars movie that is a lot like my other movies, which is visual spectacle and a healthy dose of wish fulfillment, levity and big heart." Now, this film is also fresh off the announcement board, so it's way too early to know what it's going to be about, or even if it's a standalone. It might be part of what Taika's doing, and also the 2027 movie, which is set to be written by Michael Waldron and directed by Kevin Feige. And with that said, my dear friends, that brings us to the end of today's Star Wars news update. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and if you want more videos not found here on YouTube, while also getting your name at the end of my videos, then click the link down there in the description. But until the next one, guys, may the Force be with you always.